24 July. Present is Mr. Vachon, Mr. Curtis, myself, and the council. Absent is Mr. Charbonneau, the city manager, acting city manager, the city clerk are all present. The first item on the agenda is additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda. Are there any? All right. We'll move on to approve the minutes. We have 3 to do, so the first one would be to approve the council minutes of 10 July 2023. I have a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Approved by, motion by Chris Vachon, second, Mr. Curtis. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? The ayes have it. So the minutes of 10 July 2023 are approved. The next one on the agenda would be to approve the special council meeting on 17 July 2023. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Curtis, second.
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Vachon. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed, the aye? Oh, and I vote aye. Sure, it's got to be 3, my God. So, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I voted aye, so that motion is passed. And the third one would be to approve the minutes of a special meeting on the 19th of July.
So moved.
Hear a motion to accept these minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Vachon, second by Mr. Curtis. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Opposed? There are none opposed, so the ayes have it. So those minutes are approved. There's no question. Okay. All right, we'll move on. The next item is comments by members of the public. We have 2 signed up. First one is Jay Walsh.
Good evening, President and council members, city manager. This is regarding the selection of the next city manager. Any review of candidates for city manager are premature prior to the election of the new mayor. The newly elected mayor of Newport should have a say in the review process and selection process for this position. The mayor is a member of the council and has a vote, not just a tie-breaking vote, but an equal vote on all matters of council. Also, I'm requesting the council establish an advisory committee to review applicants for the position of city manager to make recommendations to the city council. Formal request. There's a copy for each member. In the past 3 years, the city council, town councils of the following cities chose to use advisory committees. It's Waterbury, Vermont in 2023, Claremont, New Hampshire in 2022, Winooski in 2022, and South Burlington in 2021. These councils recognize the importance of involving stakeholders in the community and in the selection process. Each of these towns received between 10 and 20 qualified applicants for the position of city manager. And following the advisory committee's work, they boiled that down to 2 to 3 of the top candidates to present to the council for consideration. We have a large number of employers in Newport with vast experience in hiring qualified management level employees. Their expertise should be considered. Employers such as Poulin Grain, Columbia Forest Products, North Country Regional Hospital, Galbion, Metalflex, built by Newport and others. They are important businesses to Newport and have a vested interest in the management and growth of the city. Their success and growth is essential to the health and financial success of the city of Newport, and their input, as well as others, members of the community, play a very important part in selecting the most qualified candidate to run our city. Please consider this request for an advisory committee before moving forward with the selection of city manager. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. I will say one thing, we're not selecting until after the election. Therefore, we're not trying to sneak who we want in. Next one would be Ann Sherlock.
Good evening. I may not complete these tonight, but I've had a chance to look at the budget status report that you provided to us about a month ago. And I had some questions and comments. On page 8 of the budget status report, I see that the annual report went from probably around $3,500 to produce to $8,000 to produce last year. And if it's because of the shiny report that we got, my shiny report, as I begin to use it, the pages are beginning to come out. That never happened with respect to the old, dull-colored one. And if we're paying twice as much for this, I suggest we go back to the old one. The second thing that I wanted to ask a question about was Stone Garden on page 10 of the report. It indicates that we paid $62,000 for operating Stone Garden and $44,000 for Stone Garden equipment. And I was under the understanding that the federal government paid for Stone Garden. So when I look back at the income that we took in, I saw the $60,000 presumably for operating Stone Garden. But under equipment, it says minus $9,000. I don't know what, I never saw a minus $9,000 in these reports at all. But that certainly doesn't amount to the $44,000 in equipment. And I'd like an explanation of what's happening with Stone Garden. My next comment is on page 12. Under fire department equipment and grants for expenses, it says firefighters grant $50,000, 511 was spent. And I wanted, usually grants are income, not an expense. So do we give a grant to the firefighters that we pay $50,000 for? I just wanted to know. I mean, I might understand it, but I didn't know we were doing that. And the budget indicated that the amount that we would spend would be zero for that. The next thing I wanted to mention was the parklet under city property on page 15. It says that we budgeted to pay $0 for the parklet, and we paid $39,369. It was my understanding that there was money from Casella to pay for the parklet, and I'd like to know what the $39,000 is that we paid for the parklet was for. I don't want to bore you with minor ones. But a lot of times in these reports, monies, it says nothing's budgeted, and then we pay a significant amount of money out, and I assume that's because you moved monies around, but it would be nice to indicate where the money came from that was provided. So, I mean, I'm not going to trouble you with them all, but it's no way to account for it. There's no way for me to account for it. I just assume that it came from somewhere else. I'd like to know on page 21, it says tax sale redemption under other expenditures of $56,000. We budgeted nothing for it. I wanted to know what that was. Also, I wanted to know what $60,000 in the same section for the Renaissance project, non-federal, was. And I guess I can do the water and sewer questions next time. So thank you, and it was my understanding that our interim city manager was giving answers. I think there were some questions asked last time. I don't know if that person got the answers, but I'd like the answers in public so that the public would know what these things mean. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. It's all been logged down.
The answers will go back to council so they can be made public.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the next.
Mr. Wilson, I have a question.
No, you're not signed in.
I understand.
No, I've already moved on to the next item. And it's the Velco request for waiver of the 45-day advance notice requirement is permitted by 30 VSA 248F with an anticipated vote. And we received this in our packets, and I think it's pretty straightforward.
We did have a project manager from Velco calling in, but unfortunately we were unable to make that connection. But I spoke at length with the representative from Velco, and this is a small project within the fence of the property over on Clyde Street to replace a 30 MVA transformer with a 56 MVA transformer. And they believe that the existing transformer is really at the end of its life. And given its age and condition, they are risking potential future outages if the equipment isn't presented. So they're asking for the waiver of the 45-day notice, which is essentially to allow properties that abut a Velco property to know what the project is and have any impact on the land. In this case, everything is within the fence of the Velco property. There will be no impact on the abutting lands. In addition, the Planning Commission is asked for its waiver, and Northeastern Vermont Development Association is also asked to waive it, and they've done so already.
Okay.
So.
So, we've got a briefing on that. Are there any questions on that? And I hear a motion to approve the waiver of the advance notice for Velco.
I'll make the motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Vachon. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any other questions on this? Any questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No, the ayes have it. And we have the form here to sign. And maybe we can get hold of Mr. Charbonneau. He commanded.
John or not John? Jim or?
I'll send it to City manager. All right, I can't circle that off. Now, the next item would be new business. Mr. Johnson.
No, I have none.
And Mr. Curtis, any business? Mr. Vashon?
I have two items. Given the flooding that crossed the state this past week, Newport was very fortunate, but I wanted to highlight the work of our Chief of Police, Travis Bingham, and his staff who were out patrolling and working with people who got themselves into difficulty with the waters. Our Fire Chief, John Harleman, did the same. He and his crew were out being very vigilant on very, very tough weather days. I was actually sitting in the office one night when I heard the sirens go out. The rain was incredibly heavy, and once again, they were out in the worst of weather, looking out for our interests. I'd like to thank our Public Works Director, Tom Bernier, who did an incredible job making sure the flooding was under control for the park, and also for the public facilities that he was in charge of. Our Recreation Director, Mike Brown, did a great job rearranging the recreation activities because the beach over at Prouty was flooded, and we have a number of summer programs for the children there, so he did a great job. I would like to thank Representative Woody Page, who reached out the morning that the floods began to offer any assistance that he could offer. To thank Mr. Wilson, who came by to remind us all that we have an agreement with the City of Magog to open the dam. I was in touch, and I would like to thank very much the City of Magog. Was in constant contact with them for most of the week. They did an incredible job keeping the floodgates open. In fact, they increased the floodgates to offset the flooding on our side. So we owe a round of thank you to all of these people. Really, they helped us avoid some of the flooding issues that the rest of the state encountered. My second new business item was just to mention that on Tuesday, our Chief of Police, Travis Bingham, and all officers who were not on duty that day drove down to Castleton to pay their respects to fallen officer Jessica Ebbinghausen, who was killed in the line of duty, lost her life on a sunny Vermont day, doing her duty as a police officer. There were over 700 first responders coming from Vermont, across New England and New York, to pay tribute to this young 19-year-old officer who was at the start of her career. And I just wanted to thank Chief of Police Travis Bingham and all the officers from Newport for representing us at this very somber event. It's a reminder to all of us that on the most beautiful day in one of the most beautiful states in the country, our first responders are always on duty and in danger when they are on duty. So we certainly appreciate their efforts in acknowledging this tragedy in our state.
Thank you. And I believe in talking with the city manager that Magog was going to keep the dam open for at least one more week, trying to save what we can of the park.
And they'll let us know before they close it.
Because it's not always the easiest affair. If they don't want to open it, then we have to get Washington talking to Quebec. Okay, I've got two things for new business. 26th, which is Wednesday night, right here, I believe at 1800 Skip should be 6 p.m. There'll be a mayoral debate. And then, please, 1 August, it's a chance to vote for a new mayor. All right, that's new business. Old business, Mr. Johnson. Old business.
Have none.
None. Mr. Curtis.
No, thank you.
Nothing.
Mr. Vashon, nothing? Anything? All right, I have three things. Well, I already mentioned the dam. This is from everybody that lives on the west side, as I would say, the poorer side of town. Thank Mr. Bernier for getting the West Main Street painted in the center, so It's surprising. They still speed, but at least they stay on their side of the road and don't cut the corners as much. It really helps. Now, the second one is, we had some old business, and I have to read this. This is for Mr. Walsh. In response to the questions posed by Mr. Walsh in the public comment at the council meeting held on June 26, 2023, the city attorney has advised us not to respond to your questions because they pertain to the same subject matter as a potential lawsuit from former Mayor Beth Barnes. That's it on that. Now, we moved this. It was earlier in the agenda, but the next thing would be going to an executive session for hopefully discussing from our reps the union negotiations ongoing with Public Works. And we have one of two options. The last thing would be setting the next meeting, or we can go upstairs and wait, but I don't think there's going to be any action coming out of it. It's just a briefing and an update to the council on these two gentlemen's ongoing negotiations with Public Works. So, do I hear a motion to?
I move to find that open discussion of contract negotiations with the city's Public Works Union and place the city at a substantial disadvantage because premature disclosure would impair the city's bargaining position and violate ground rules.
Okay, I have a motion from Mr. Vashon for executive session. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second by Mr. Curtis. Discussion? No discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye to make it happen. Any noes? No noes? The ayes have it. So we are going to go into.
There's a second.
Yeah. Oh, there's a second one. Okay.
I move to enter executive session to discuss collective bargaining negotiations and to invite, some attorneys not on, Rebecca Tarian and Karen Garrity
And the city attorney.
and the city attorney will come, and John Johnson.
Okay, I have a second motion to go into executive session. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. So, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Those against it? No noes? The ayes have it. So we are going to go into executive session. And as we walk up the stairs, so you don't all have to wait around, should you desire, the next meeting will be on 7 August 2023 at 6:30 p.m. with your new mayor. So we'll go upstairs in case anybody wants to hang around. All right, we're out of executive session, and there was no action taken. It's not ready yet. So we move on to the next item, and I'd already mentioned it earlier. For those that are still here, the next meeting will be 7 August 2023 at 6:30 here in the Gateway. And the next item on the agenda is to adjourn. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have two, so I'll go with I have a motion and I have a second to adjourn. Discussion on it? No discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye, so we can do this. And we are adjourned at 7:31. Thank you.